Hi, I'm here talking about dementia, and I see my dear Rianna Patterson, who is an expert on dementia, the topic of dementia, and she's smiling away because of my bright colors. She's all the way are you in the UK now?
Yes,
You
I'm
are
based
in
in the
the
UK.
UK, and I will have her as we progress. I don't usually like to introduce Brianna. I will have her speak about herself a little bit and to see her involvement. This topic came about as a result of what we learned recently about our own past Prime Minister, Portia Simpson, who is now suffering with dementia. And this is a big topic for many other celebrities. And how do we, as a society, approach this? How do, as leaders, because this platform is all about leadership for developing leaders and aspiring leaders and all of those. And how do we handle situations like that? So here, Rihanna, I just hand over to you. Welcome, Chris, as well. Rihanna, I'll
Good to
hand
be
over
here.
to you. Great.
Thank you
So,
so much, Dr. Shelley. It's
yeah.
amazing to be part of this discussion, this much needed conversation. So a bit about me for the viewers. I founded the Dominica Dementia Foundation when I was 18 in memory of my grandfather who passed away with dementia in the Commonwealth of Dominica. So I have firsthand experience of the challenges, but also the opportunity to celebrate and honor our older people in the Caribbean.
Mm.
And I'm now doing my PhD in dementia, focusing on dementia narratives. And I also have a documentary. So my whole world has been pretty much dementia advocacy, lobbying the government, and so on. But what I want to kind of express, I think the first question was around leadership and how do you initiate communication of a dementia diagnosis to the public while preserving their dignity and legacy, if I'm correct. So I'll just go into that. So
So,
dementia is a significant global health and societal issue, as we know, and it requires careful communication. Okay. And that's important to maintain momentum. And I think it's essential that those who are responsible for sharing news about dementia do so with empathy and professionalism. So individuals with dementia can get that respect and honor that they deserve. So, utilizing terminologies and resources from dementia charities can be a first useful step in understanding the dementia and communicating around it. So, words such as senile, fragile, suffering, or struggling can carry negative connotations, and that can increase the stigma and fear associated with dementia. And this stigma may defer families from seeking a diagnosis. So we need to be mindful because they may worry as to how people are perceiving dementia. So, for example, if there's a particular news story that is not very favorable and a family member sees that, they'll be like, what is the point in getting a diagnosis if this is how people are going to treat you? Like, is this what people really think about dementia? So I think we need to, just bear in mind the audience and how people will feel when they, read such things. And I think we want to avoid this, situation because the public, largely trusts leaders, right? And it is
mm.
a responsibility of these leaders to communicate effectively and uphold the integrity of the messages. So
Oh,
consulting. Sorry, I was just my last thing
that
was
no,
in
I know, I know I wanted to just take you a step back a little
okay.
bit to just focus a little bit more on the path that you actually took. You mentioned briefly, but we wanted to dive in a little bit more than
Hmm.
briefly, to talk on this basically this topic. Uh, you were a caregiver, as you said, right?
Yeah.
And with being a caregiver, uh, for individuals like yourself who are caregivers, how can personal experiences drive innovation, compassion, and policy change
Yes.
in dementia care?
Yeah, I would say that there's a difference between being an academic or PhD student and being an
Right,
academic with lived experience. So in my case, caring for my grandfather with dementia,
right, right.
it brings a deeper commitment to research. It becomes more than just publications, but it's about the people. It's about the
Right,
heart of the research itself. Passion and drive, you cannot buy that at a store. It's built over time. You need
right,
to sharpen it. It develops, it grows in you. And having been a caregiver, now standing alongside other researchers that I
right,
used to look up to for dementia research, now being one of
right,
them, it's
right.
it's a deeper meaning. It's different.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take you back as well to your age. You said you started it at 18 years old.
Yeah.
Now, I must mention to our audience that Rihanna is also one of the Institute of Caribbean Studies program, Ignite Caribbean program, and she was recognized for this research that she, well, at the time she started a nonprofit, I believe, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but she started an initiative, and that initiative at 18 years old really stood out for us. And we couldn't, personally, I could not be, being one of the drivers behind it, I could not understand why such an 18-year-old would be delving so deeply into this topic. So, now, fast forward, what is it now? 7 years later. And then with the advent of the past Prime Minister, Bush Simpson, now experiencing it, we just thought that it would be really important to have you talk. And I see we're also joined by Dr. Romario, um, who is also here with us, and will participate in the discussion as well. So, Rihanna, taking you back a little bit, how can teams and institutions, affect leaders who are affected by that, when they're thinking, how can we support them as caregivers or as if we're going to the past prime minister's situation now, how can teams and institutions protect their well-being so they don't feel as though, their integrity is in question? That's
Okay.
the question that I want to ask.
Yeah, a couple of things. Stop me if I start,
That's fine.
going over time. But yeah, ensuring all confidential information about this particular leader is strictly protected, with
Right,
clear
right,
protocols in place to
right.
prevent unauthorized disclosure. So that's one thing. The other
Mm-hmm,
thing, if the person is still working in that position, I would say maybe doing a performance review and assessing their capacity to make certain decisions, because there will be decisions that they can make, but
mm-hmm.
because it might be at the expense of the community, depending
Right.
on that, the gravity of the decision, maybe they're not the best suited person to make that decision.
Right.
So I think it's very important that they assess the capacity of the person, and then also make sure that the teams are on the same page,
Mm-hmm,
that they will continue to respect and regard the person. Age discrimination is certainly a thing, as well as ageism. So ensuring people have proper training given to their staff so they have the tools to be better and understanding colleagues, I think is really important to support an age-friendly office. And then if they want to
mm-hmm,
take it a step further, I would say it's about including and adopting a national policy on aging in their home country. So whether it be Dominica or Jamaica, if one is not existing, I think now is a great time to develop one. So I would say that as well. And then,
mm-hmm.
it's also around recognizing and celebrating their wins, even
Right,
more
right,
so.
right,
It's not a
right, right.
tick box exercise, so
Mm-hmm,
it needs to be genuine. But I
mm-hmm,
think people with dementia, they need to be reminded that they still have a purpose, that they still have a purpose in the workplace. And
mm.
celebrating that encourages that kind of environment. So that is how I would say, to support teams.
Thank you. So if we're looking back at it and we're looking at this, and I think about my dear, the one that I love so much because I'm a Christmas baby, and I always think about Bruce Willis. I love to watch Bruce Willis
Mm,
all
yeah.
the time, and he's also one that is suffering from that. Now, these persons definitely, once they're diagnosed, start stepping back from public life because there are some that are are in the public life, and there are others who are maybe a little bit easier because you're not so much there, but the stigma still remains. So how is it that and Dr. Romario, I would ask you to jump in as you see fit as well, and or Sir Chris, Sir Christopher Daley to jump in as well in this discussion because I think it's so important. But for those who are in the public eye, and my background also being in human resource management, then there are also some signs that we can sometimes see. The leadership may not necessarily see it visibly, but the ones who are closely working and connecting with the person on a daily basis, sometimes we'll see that, hey, something is off. That is for the persons who are still on the job. But does dementia affect only individuals who are much older, or have you seen it affecting people that like in the 40s, 50s? This is an ignorant question on my part that I'm asking, a simple question. And the second part to that is Alzheimer's. How do you distinguish between the two?
I think Romario wants to jump in on that, so I can add to that if needed.
Okay.
So, pleasure to be here on this World Mental Health Day. Regarding to the question that you asked about if it's only older persons, no. In my profession, you do have younger persons in their 40s that can have dementia,
Mhm.
evident increased forgetfulness, decreased executive
Right.
function, meaning the ability to like calculate, the ability to make thoughtful decisions. Um, it might not be the traditional sense of, vascular dementia, which is what's happening in older persons as they get older. The
Mm-hmm.
brain, the sclerosis starts to get too medical. But in terms of younger persons, some of the driving factors that contribute to their dementia, which are non-traditional, would be like the misuse of substances, so like alcohol, cocaine, marijuana smoking. These can
Mm,
affect the brainwave patterns and can
mm,
contribute to their pattern of dementia. Other things that can cause it in this younger age group that's not traditional would be things like trauma, so if they sustain a head injury, a fall, gunshot wound to the head that they survive. All of these things can compound their forgetfulness.
mhm,
So that's one point to note in regards to younger persons having dementia.
mhm,
Also, there are certain immunological conditions. So if the person has lupus, for example, they're predisposed, which is not controlled, meaning they're not taking their immunosuppressants like steroids or other agents, which are steroid sparing. They
mhm,
can are predisposed to having a particular flare that's called lupus cerebritis. Again, not to be too medical, but essentially it is a person who has altered mental status. They're confused, they have frequent headaches, and might have seizures. These are different ways in which it can manifest. But one of the things that you would realize in terms of persons who their lupus is not controlled and they're having sorry about the background noise, and they're having change in personality, and as I said, they're confused, their executive function is not firing as it used to be, then and you do their certain laboratory tests and you realize their lupus is not controlled, then these younger persons can also have dementia. And we usually call that lupus cerebritis. So those are the three main
okay.
factors that are driving
Mm,
dementia in younger age groups. Trauma, just to recap, trauma,
mhm,
um, certain autoimmune conditions, and
mhm,
other health conditions as well. If you have thyroid issues, thyroid
mhm,
abnormalities can
mhm,
contribute to dementia. In fact, in our field, when we're doing dementia screens, the thyroid function test is a part of it because low or high thyroid can affect brainwave patterns and can contribute to dementia. So it's not just autoimmune condition. And then the third thing would have been, as I said, the use of hard substances, marijuana, cocaine, alcohol abuse. Alcohol predisposes to thiamine and vitamin deficiency, which can affect how the person functions in terms of their executive. Last point, because I'm not talking too much, regarding the Alzheimer's, the
mhm,
difference between Alzheimer's and dementia, it's hard clinically to differentiate between both.
okay.
Truthfully, the definitive because these are clinical diagnoses based on, as I said, the person has increased forgetfulness. They have functional neurological decline. They're now becoming more dependent on others for care and are able to do things on their own. And it can progress. That is a progressive disorder. So it's not just the memory, it can actually affect physical functioning. They're not able to come out of bed, they're not able to feed themselves. And I think that Willis is now in that stage where it's just not just the memory loss, but also ability to do activities of daily living. But the definitive way to know the difference, it has to be at postmortem, truthfully, where they would do a biopsy of the brain, looking for things like amyloids and certain, not to be too medical, certain other compounds in the brain. So that's really
you know that you're being very, very, very technical, and
Well,
I see Chris want to ask a
yeah,
question.
I'd like to maybe just to set up some thresholds, right? We talked about Porsche, but we also, the last U.S. President Biden had some cognitive decline. When are there trigger levels when we recognize different degrees and the like, and how would you make that choice?
Romario, do you want to take it?
So yes, it can manifest in different ways. The most common. Hello?
Yes, we're
Yes.
here. We're hearing you. We're hearing you.
I know
Yes,
there's
there are
some blood
different
tests or some scans that can
manifestations.
also help to do assessment. Do you want to speak about that also when, do you do an assessment, from
Hello?
We're not hearing you so well. Ryan, you want to touch anything on that? Are you able to?
Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you
feedback?
now.
Okay. Right. Right. So I'm saying yes, there are different variations in how the patient or the person. One is definitely the increased forgetfulness, the searching for words. They're not able to have a coherent sentence, what we call well, too many call. So you're asking them one point and they veer off to another. You mentioned President Joe Biden, but not to be political. I think the current sitting president, just based on how he behaves, clinically, you would be classified as someone who has a certain stage of dementia. In all honesty, imaging does not necessarily it's not necessarily used to diagnose, but what you do look for is certain changes on the brain scan. Not to be technical, so you look for like atrophy, cerebral atrophy. If they have there are certain changes. That's it, because I know everybody might not be too medical, but there are certain changes that it can use, structural changes that it can use, that can also is commonly found in persons with dementia.
I see Rihanna. Go ahead, Rihanna.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add to that. MRI scans have been used in terms of like the dementia diagnosis. So there are equipment that can be used, but it's just, I guess, the issue of accessibility because it's, probably not
Okay.
accessible in certain
Okay.
countries. But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
PT scans and so on.
Okay. So maybe this is the point that I should mention that Rihanna has actually traveled worldwide. You want to share some of the countries that you've been and some of the talks that you've given on dementia, just to show, because you are pretty young, so people may look on and see it. And the same thing with Dr. Romario. You guys are pretty young, but again, we're talking about the top of the level that we have been recognized under the 30 under 30 um, Ignite Caribbean initiative. So share a little bit about the travels that you've made, because it hasn't come up yet.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just came back from Puerto Rico actually, on Saturday. So I did a mission trip to Puerto Rico, and I was able to share knowledge on non-pharmaceutical approaches towards dementia in the Caribbean. And I was on a panel with Chile and Puerto Rico. And then also I participated in their World Alzheimer's Month activities. So they did some things for seniors. I was in Curacao earlier this year. I was invited to speak for like on dementia for their 25th anniversary of the Curacao Stitching Association. So that was a great privilege. And prior to that, I've been to Rwanda
Right.
for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. I've been to I think it's Scotland, Glasgow, just attending a conference. This time I wasn't
Right,
really
right,
speaking on any matter, but I've been to several countries,
right, right,
Dominica, obviously, for
right, right,
example, and Miami for consensus meeting with the Alzheimer's Disease International Caribbean Associations.
right,
So
right.
yeah, I've been to a
Right,
few
I
places.
figured. But the thing
Brunei
is
was
that
nice.
so I had to bring that to the fore so people could know that you've traveled worldwide. I do follow you a lot on social media, on LinkedIn and all. So I see what you're doing in this space, and at this age, people may look and say, "Oh, she's so young. Why am I talking to this person?" But you are experienced, not only experienced in their technical knowledge, as Dr. Romario keeps using that term, but also experienced in the fact that you had started it with your through your grandfather it was, right?
Yeah.
Diagnosing.
Hmm.
Any other
I
point
guess I
before?
have a follow-up for her. Given that she's traveled so well and broad, how does the cultural, how do you see it, the different cultures approach
Good
the
question.
support
Right,
of their loved ones
right,
and the
right.
protection of them in this condition?
Yeah, worldwide. There's a need for caregiving training. So there's a lot of informal carers, especially in the developing countries
Mm-hmm,
across Caribbean, across the African continent, Asia, and
mm-hmm,
they need families to be equipped to know how to support their people living with dementia. So that's one thing. The other thing is support group networks. So
mm-hmm,
most associations will have a dementia support group, and that is something that fosters peer-to-peer learning. And I've seen this in, we have it in Dominica, in the Dominica Dementia Foundation. I believe Barbados, the Barbados Alzheimer's Association, probably has some kind of agency of that sort. And it's really needed because everyone needs each other, especially in this journey of dementia. So that is a couple of ways that people can, get that support. And then also in terms of accessing knowledge, Dementia Friends. Puerto Rico, they have a Dementia Friends program. Dominica has a Dementia Friends program, and a few other Caribbean countries as well as outside of that. And it was actually the first Dementia Friends initiative was actually done by Alzheimer's Society UK. So it is a UK initiative, but other people can adopt the program in their countries. However, they are kind of bringing it down to national level again, but it
mm-hmm,
used to be
mm-hmm,
like an international arm. So that is why various countries have access to the Dementia Friends program. But it's a free program, and it's it gives you basic knowledge on
mm-hmm.
dementia, and that's really important for families and the
Right.
community because we need that. We need to understand what it is on a basic level so we can support people living with dementia. So that's a few things I've seen across various
Right.
countries.
Thank you for that
And
question,
I guess the
Vic.
follow-up, with the kind of cultural acceptance or denial of it, what do you know? How do families, is there any studies in how families kind of either ignore it or try to hide it or to, they want to protect, it's a tough disease because you want to protect the loved one, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same
Right,
time, you want to broaden the support, especially if their outer circle.
right.
What's,
Yeah.
what have been
I,
kind of the things that
I
families?
was looking at that and thinking, just as she was talking, Chris, at the same point, that Bruce Willis, his family just had to come
Yeah.
out recently to say that, hey, we're going to give them specific care because
Mm-hmm.
they're not no longer able to deal with it anymore. And the same in the same breath with the past Prime Minister, Romario Simpson,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. The
Mm-hmm.
loved one came out and said, hey, this is the situation, this is happening, and all of that. And it takes me to the point about the emotional and physical and professional side of things where how can the caregivers manage these care? This is just a short response we're hoping. But what are there any tips that you can give to caregivers and families as to what they can do? I know the research is going on, but still.
Yeah, so your question is referring to what families can do in terms of, just kind of reframe that question, sorry.
Yeah, just simple. What can families do? Families and caregivers, what can
Mm-hmm.
they do in order to support the person and also to support themselves? Um, and that's why I went back to the point about Bruce Willis family that just came out, I think, 2 months ago, and then now the past Prime Minister's Romario Simpson came out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a number of things. I think first of all, you know, kind of engaging and switching off their own perspectives and narratives when it comes to dementia, because that kind of reduces the likelihood of them actually seeking help. If they have that stigma and they're just in their head around, okay, this is this thing, they might not want to go to the hospital because they're like, well, then everyone will know, what's going on in the
Mhm.
family, and we don't want that. But at the same time, maybe
Okay.
it's worth taking that risk because you will get support for your family, which is more important than what people have to say, right? So it's
Mhm.
kind of reframing the narrative, and
Mhm.
that can take some time, and you may need support for that, because these
Mhm.
things, it's a generational thing. We've come across this mindset generationally. So it will take a bit of shape and work, but it needs to happen because, you know, the person that needs the support needs it professionally, and dementia is progressive. So you need to act fast because it can
Mhm.
go from stage 1 to stage 3 in a couple of weeks or a couple of days, so you never really know where it's going. So I think
Wow.
that as well as advocating, because
Mhm.
we talk about young onset dementia, which happen in your 30s, and then there's childhood dementia. So even the health practitioner themselves may look at the person and the client and say, okay, this person probably doesn't have dementia. Maybe it's diabetes. Maybe it's some other, modifiable risk that we need to look at. And they oversight the dementia, and the dementia is progressing, and then we're looking at other things and we're busy on other, business, when we need to just look at the dementia. So if you think your family member has dementia, I think it's worth advocating for the person and saying, no, I don't think it's diabetes. I think we need to look at this in particular, and let's focus on this for a minute. So
Mhm.
being an advocate for your family member is really important. And then getting the supports, dementia support group networks are very
Mhm.
useful to have that peer-to-peer support, because you will need it. And then counseling as well can be
Mhm.
quite useful for the psychosocial and psychological support. And then it's also looking at a care assessment. So once you actually go through the hospital journey and you have a professional working with you, you need a care plan. And that is a comprehensive care plan that talks about the person's behavior, who they are as a
Mhm.
person, and what do they need for this journey. Is absolutely integral, because we cannot take it day by day. We can, but we
Mhm.
still need a plan.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
important to at
Mhm.
least have a plan in place. So
Mhm.
I think those kind of things in place would help. Yeah.
Thank you. So I saw where Dr. Romario wanted to share a little bit, but at the same time, as we're gonna go to you now, I'm wondering, Doc, does it you know how it is, Chris, that when you get to an older age, you start forgetting stuff. How is it? How can you distinguish, oh, it's not old age or it's the first sign of old age compared to, because those are some things I think happen. So if you want to, while you're responding or commenting on whatever you wanted to comment, would you like to just deal with that as well?
Right, sure. Rihanna would have raised most of the points in regards to how does, regarding stigma and in terms of care for persons with dementia. So I concur and agree with her points that were raised. There's definitely a stigma around it where families do try to hide the diagnosis. You don't mention the former Prime Minister Jamaica Portia Simpson. For years, there were speculations about same, and it was just recently, last month actually, that her husband, you know,
Right.
um, came out and, said, yes, she does have dementia and it is a challenge, but, they're trying to protect her privacy. And you would have
Right.
also tried to quantify that, her dementia is not to the point where she's not able to help herself. It's just that the
Mm-hmm.
memory is just totally gone. But physically, in terms of the functional activity, it's still preserved. In
Okay.
regard to your, so I agree with Rihanna that, one of the main ways is first education about the condition. As a caregiver, you also have to watch your mental health because it can be very stressful taking care of someone
Mm-hmm.
with dementia. And it can don't want to really say this. I don't know how to put it, but I'll just say it can also be a bit unrewarding. Unrewarding in that because they don't remember all the kindness and the good that you have done for them. Sometimes, not that you do things for gratification, but sometimes it feels good when someone remembers and can say thank you or, can appreciate it. But it's not their fault that they're not able to, but that can weigh on a family member. So you also have to check on your mental health and definitely support group and psychosocial
Right,
group. They
right,
are not
right,
scope to help with that.
I
As it relates to aging, yes, it is a natural part of aging that the memory might not be as sharp as it once was. So even though forgetfulness is often one of the more common symptom of dementia, you have to put it into context. So it's not just that you forget where you put your house key or you forget
your
to pay
phone.
for a particular bill or your phone, right?
Much
You
more
have to
than
put it
that.
in
Yeah.
Right. You have to put it in context where
Right,
it's become like a pattern of behavior or a habit. So one forgetfulness of something, or a memory long ago that you can't remember is not necessarily dementia, doesn't necessarily equate to dementia in an older person. It has to be a specific observable pattern of difference in behavior, attitude, even their physical activities that they're not able to do, tasks that would be considered, you know, easy to come by that they were once able to do. So we have to be very careful that we don't just label everyone as dementia as they get older
right,
because
right,
the
right,
memory might not be as sharp as it used to be.
yeah.
Last note on that, one of the things that help with memory as persons get older, something that they might take for granted, and I know you'll appreciate this, Dr. Cameron, is reading. So the more you engage the mind, continuous reading,
right,
logically and critical thinking, it has
right,
proven that it does help with muscle strength in terms of the
Yeah.
memory.
right,
And that is one of the ways in which
right,
you can keep sharp.
right,
Someone can keep sharp as you get older.
I,
right, right.
I want you guys to speak to one of the dynamics which be probably the most challenging one. You may see somebody of a loved one developing symptoms of this, and they're in denial. How do you deal with the dynamics of giving them still agency while caring for them as they journey without it, without taking away their dignity and their agency?
And then the independence.
Yeah.
So I can
Um,
maybe just add to
sure,
that
go ahead.
very briefly. I've had conversations with people with dementia, and sometimes I don't say the word dementia. I say brain health or memory, or I don't say anything at all, and we just kind of have a conversation around brain health in a sense, if that makes sense. So saying the word dementia, they already immediately they shut off. They don't want to talk about it. But if we have a conversation and we talk about, okay, brain health, memory, that's it's more inviting for them to share. And then if we don't, talk directly and say like we're talking about you in this instance, they will also share more because they're happy to talk about,
Right,
anyone else apart from themselves. So if
right,
we
right,
don't say that this conversation is directed to you, then they will still have a conversation regarding memory. But if we say your memory, then it's finished.
right,
So
right,
it's
right,
a it's
right,
a way of, navigating the conversation.
right.
So still having a productive conversation, but meeting them where they are. They're at denial. So obviously we have to, take a very sensitive approach to how we speak
Okay.
to them. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you so much. We have
Maybe
to
that's just
take
a
this.
follow with her grandfather. But since it was her grandfather, do you have, is it information that you can kind of share? I'm just intrigued that you were such a caregiver for your grandfather. Can you
Yeah.
even give us in a personal dialogue
Yeah.
and how that went for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, granddad, he, really significantly declined. And it got to a point where he couldn't engage with me. So he couldn't talk anymore. He couldn't eat. So he was eating through a tube and he stopped engaging. But that didn't stop me trying to engage with him. So I brought, pictures of the family and everything. And I was like, Granddad, look at your, this person and that person and, your
Mhm,
godson and so on. He was not engaging, but I would still bring things because you might as well try. If hope
mhm,
is all gone, then, but I still had hope that he would
mhm,
still, engage in some way, even if it's visually taking it in and not getting feedback. That's okay. But I wanted him to still, be a part of something. So in that way, bringing the, stories of the family, associating with
Mm-hmm.
the imagery
Mm-hmm.
would still kind of click in his mind in some way. Even
Mm-hmm.
if I can't see it,
Right,
some things we
right,
just can't see. So
right.
that was a way of, still getting him engaged. And then when he was discharged from the hospital, it was quite difficult because he forgot how to walk. So we had to bring him up the stairs because we lived in a two-story house. And then it was also trying to prevent him from wandering around because we didn't want to lose him or, he falls down because falls is also a risk factor. And then if you already have dementia, falls also intensifies the stage
Mm,
that you go into. And it can be
mm-hmm.
very detrimental to the person, their physical and mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
making sure that he wasn't wandering, just continuously monitoring him, checking on him was really important. I think, and just ensuring that they're eating on time and that sort of thing. So I was kind of involved in the personal care to some extent, but more of my thing was the social element of it,
Mm-hmm.
speaking with
Mm-hmm.
him, showing
Mm-hmm.
pictures of the family, keeping him engaged as much
Mm-hmm.
as I could, because I was 16 at the time, so there
Mm-hmm.
was only so much I could do and so much I knew about dementia. The only thing that I
Mm-hmm.
knew about dementia was from the TV adverts, and that was about
Mm-hmm.
it. So I had to go and do my own research because I was in high school and everything. And go online and just find out what I can find out and how I can
Mm-hmm.
support my granddad through this. So it was a learning experience for me. But it was vital that I
Mm-hmm.
knew how to do something in that case because I didn't want to be useless. I
Is
wanted
that
to do
what's
something.
is that what sparked your interest in it? We're winding down now, but this
Yes.
conversation is so interesting.
Mm.
It's eye-opening, but if you could just end with the last point that you're mentioning there, that I
Yeah,
just
so really
this
short. Yeah, when my granddad passed away, I decided that I had an interest in understanding how someone can forget everything that they know and love
okay,
themselves,
okay.
and so on. So that's kind of what inspired it.
How that all right. Any last 2 cents, guys, before we wrap up here today? Such an interesting
There's
conversation.
one thing that I've seen, and I think Dr. Gupta, the CNN doctor, I think he's been advocating some kind of medication. Are there, I'm pretty sure with this, it's also opportunity for all kind of not good and bad formulas for cures to give people false hope. What can you say about those kind of,
I'm laughing, Chris, because you're asking another question that it's going to
no,
take us some time to answer. Is there anybody who can answer that in a sentence or a sentence and a half?
Maybe Mario should
So,
try because I'll stay here all day.
so you're right. They are trying to work on a vaccine for Alzheimer's. These are still in the clinical research stage, not yet FDA approved for use in the general population. So we await with the advent of technology, anything is possible, but we await to see what the research data has shown.
Right, right.
Oh,
Thank,
okay, last two
thank you.
things from me. I'll just say two words. Denopizol and galantamine, I think, is some of the drugs that are being accessible for Alzheimer's cases. So that's me.
So a few things about me is that I'm an author, and Dr. Romario actually said it that reading. So I cannot finish this conversation without mentioning about reading. My background is also has been in healthcare, over 2 decades in healthcare and pharmaceuticals. So this thing, when I hear it, I love to take care of people. I love healthcare. I love the caregiving. And when I see that you can't do something, that's what really
Mm,
sparked. And everything else about me as a leadership coach, it's all about leaders. And then I hear society's leaders. When the leaders are affected, that's what brings a lot more advocacy to the conditions of different kind of illnesses or things that are happening in our society. When the leader is affected, the well-known leader, that's in Bruce Willis and um, past Prime Minister Portia Simpson. That's what brings it to it. So, hey, we're thankful that these things have happened, and that maybe going forward there would be more discussions that are opened up, and that Chris, with his many questions, many questions, will be answered in time. Thank you so much. And you can find each person on where can they find you, Rianna?
Everywhere. Instagram, LinkedIn, X, Telegram.
Everywhere. And what about you, Dr. Romario?
So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. For me, type in, I find that if you put that's on misogynist, but if you put the word Dr. Romario Simpson, Jamaica, if you type it exactly like that in a Google search drag, all the profiles will come.
And again, Rianna is in UK, and Dr. Romario is in the island of Jamaica. And Chris, where can they find you, and where are
Ask Chris
you?
Daley. I'm always asking questions. So askchrisdailey.com is the way to find me. And all of my social media links are there.
And Chris is in Washington, D.C. So we're all over,
Yes.
but we're coming together under this common topic. Thank you so much, my panelists. It has indeed been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
You're welcome.